thing. Okay, let's get this started here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk and awesome rock. I am, of course, your host, Christopher Mader, and the candidate interviews roll on here at the Meat and Potatoes 2012 Conservative Media Network. As we head closer and closer to August 30th, my next guest, and you know, I love the caliber of individuals. I'm always impressed with the caliber of individuals I spend time talking to here on the Meat and Potato Show. And my next guest falls into that same category. This guy is no different. He studied at the U.S. Army School of Electronics at Fort Gordon, Georgia. He's also a graduate of Franklin Pierce University, former Army reservist. He also has done some work for the IDF. And he's running for state senate out of the 2nd Middlesex District. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Robert Cappucci. Rob, thanks for calling into the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's always a pleasure. Believe me, it's my honor and it's my pleasure to have a lot of you people on. I thoroughly enjoy doing this radio show, believe it or not. And like I said earlier, I'm always impressed with the caliber of the individuals that I've spoken to. One of the things I'm always impressed with that you guys do is the interesting websites that you create. And I'll post up the link to your website when I edit and annotate this video here. But let's get right into the interview, and it's got to do with the economy. And I'm going to read from your website because, again, it's just spot on here. Regulators should not be playing gotcha games, looking for excuses to fine companies or impede production. This sort of approach only stifles growth and job production. And you know, I couldn't agree more, Rob, because you know, if you're a company and you forget to refile a permit, or you just forget to dot an I across a T, you know, these agencies don't send you a nice letter saying, hey, you know, we just thought we'd remind you, we noticed that our records indicate this, that, and the other thing. No, they kick in your door and they shut your business down. I mean, what kind of a psychological effect does this have on people who want to start a business here in the state? Go ahead, Rob.
Well, this state is probably the most overregulated, and we are now the highest taxed per capita state in the entire nation. I was out door knocking in my district the other day, and speaking to a woman, Mrs. Evans, on the west side of Medford, and she's a nurse, and she wants to develop her own practice. But because of state regulations, she can't. She has to sidle up with a practitioner of some sort. And there's actually a committee coming up, and there's going to be a vote on that on Beacon Hill coming up soon. And she was asking me, you know, what can I do about it? Well, right now I'm just the candidate.
Yeah.
We've got to elect a lot more conservatives like myself that are going to fight these regulations. But if we look across the panacea of business here in Massachusetts, I mean, we've lost companies like Fidelity took off out of here because of our regulations.
That's right.
Evergreen Solar took off with more than $30 million of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And a friend of mine just posted on Facebook, a fellow state committee man, I'm on the Republican state committee, a young man named Mike Coward, a list of all the states with the various regulations. And Massachusetts is right up there among the highest regulated states. We're punishing people that want to start businesses. We're stunting growth. It's just awful to see all these different rules, taxes, regulations. We're now 7th overall on the list of states of most moved out of. People are fleeing to more tax and business-friendly states. We have the models out there, Chris. North Dakota, with its fracking industry, booming.
Right. Go ahead.
Places like Wisconsin, the Carolinas, Texas, all the red states. It's not really brain surgery. It's not really rocket science. You cut the rules, you cut the regulations, you bring down taxes, and you actually create more taxpayers. Taxes collected actually goes up. There's so many examples we can point to this nation was collecting something like 863 million. It went up to, it doubled the amount of taxes collected.
Sure, right.
And when we get these funds, when jobs are out there and businesses are booming and those taxes collected go up, then we pay down the huge debt that we have. Then we fix the infrastructure problems that we have. I live in Medford, Massachusetts.
Yes.
We're a town of about 58,000 people. We have 101 police officers. Statistics show we need about 140. So the aid being cut to local cities and towns, while Patrick is refurbing his office at $11 million.
Right.
The State House now is fixing up at $20 million. And money being needed for more police, more firefighters,
sure.
fixing roads and streets and bridges, not being spent wisely.
It's almost like State House and of course Washington D.C. itself. I was on Stephanie Davis's radio show Patriot Games a while back, and I had used the term. I used the analogy, the term of Washington D.C. and I guess you could even include Beacon Street. I mean, it's like become Versailles. It's like these guys are whining and dining, spending money, living the high life. And like you said, you drive down into a neighborhood or a city street, the roads are potholes, it's gang neighborhoods, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. And I was talking to another candidate the other night about spending priorities, and you had just mentioned it too. They renovated the State House. I mean, look at this thing, this new convention center, $1.something billion. I was talking to this one candidate. It's like, when was the last time you went to a rock concert? It's like, I remember when I was a kid, I went to a rock concert and I paid, I think, $10 for a ticket. I went to a rock concert last October with my son. I paid $125 a ticket. Now, when you get, now, and I couldn't buy the famous rock T-shirt, you know what I'm saying? Couldn't get one of those, didn't have enough money. This is my point. Where is our spending priorities? Where are they? Go ahead.
Well, obviously, if you look at Beacon Hill, their priority is growing government. We have almost 9,000 state employees making over $100K a year. And what are we getting for with our taxpayer dollars for this? More child kidnappings by the DCF from other states.
Yeah.
More children lost. Like you said, the infrastructure repairs that we need. We're heading more down the road of Versailles, and we're going to be there soon. It's really kind of frightening to see what's going on. Prices are going up, services are going down. Politicians are just more self-serving to government, and that's really not what's at the heart.
That's a great point you make. Again, I've been interviewing a lot of candidates, and it's so funny. I keep hearing the same message. One candidate I interviewed, they said, the politicians, they get elected, and then they just serve other politicians. They really don't. Now, while you're out there campaigning and knocking on doors and doing events and stuff like that, what are you hearing from people, and not just Republicans or Tea Parties? Because, again, I've spoken to other candidates, and I'm probably going to get the same answer from you, but I want to hear it. What are you hearing from everybody that you talk to? Go ahead.
Well, the general consensus that I'm receiving out there knocking on doors from all the different party backgrounds is they are fed up. Republicans this year have a really good advantage to actually get in there and make positive reformative changes to become true public servants because of that failed Obamacare website. When the Obamacare website came out, all sorts of people that never paid attention to politics before lost their health insurance. When they tried to get it back, it took some people 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get it back.
Yeah.
And not everybody got it back.
No.
When they did finally get it back, it was at a higher premium with less services, and even the worst parts of Obamacare, because the president in Washington D.C. keeps willy-nilly changing the law to suit his political objectives. But what I'm seeing is because people that never paid attention to politics before had the bite of government personally affect them. Now they're looking into it, and they're tired of seeing folks up on Beacon Hill or in Washington, D.C., given the safe political answer of trying to walk up the middle of the road in between the raindrops, so to speak, and they want people to be held accountable. They want people to be transparent, and they want true public service. They are tired of wasting their taxpayer dollars to get nothing in return, only to see these politicians getting pay raises and perks, and
sure.
look at what happened with DeLeo and how he got his, what allegedly he was one of those, he was a non-indicted co-conspirator with the probation department.
That's right.
That just happened.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you talk about that? Because that was going to be one of my other questions. We can jump ahead to that. Because, yeah, I've lived in Massachusetts my whole life. I mean, Finneran, we've had a host of speakers get indicted. Finneran, instead of going to jail like he should have gone, the guy gets a radio show. And I was thinking to myself, I've been on the radio doing this show since 2008. I still have yet to break into mainstream or prime time or anything like that. And I'm thinking to myself, is that what I got to do? Do I have to be involved in an ethics probe to get onto the radio? Because I got news for you. I'm going to do that if that's what it takes. But go ahead. Talk about the probation thing. Let's talk about the ethic probes. Go ahead, Rob. Take over the mic.
Well, what you have to do to get those sweet gigs, Chris, is also be a Democrat, because then you'll have the public union support, and then you'll have the media support, and then no matter what you do on Beacon Hill, you'll always have support from people like Ed Harding on WCVB TV5, the
Yes.
Boston Globe, NPR. Let's look at that sales tax increase a few years ago. The people of the state actually got a petition, got it on the ballot, voted it down, and the people on Beacon Hill, the Democrat majority, our one-party rule state, said they didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't know what they were voting on. They raised it to 6 1/4 anyway. How do you get away with doing things like that if you don't have the support from other areas? I mean, I was out doing a stand-up a few weekends ago in Medford Square. Union guy comes up to me, told me you have a lot of, I'll say for lack of a better term, you have a lot of courage. He used another word, but you have a lot of courage being a Republican in this state. And what he was referring to was the machine, that we Republicans do face. I'm not trying to garner any sympathy towards myself. It's just a fact of reality. The Democrats have successfully painted us as the union bashers, and the person I'm challenging and the other Democrat candidates, they can just pick up a phone and have tons of donations, tons of volunteers from the union sector. Now, I ain't no union basher. I have a lot of good friends that work in the union, family members. A lot of these folks are actually conservative-minded, and they all want what everybody wants: good jobs, decent wages, home, good education for their kids.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, they're being duped by the machine, and they're kind of like slaves. Well, it's not kind of like they are. They're slave labor because they're sold the bill of goods. And what do they get for it when businesses aren't coming here to open shop? They can't. And even the unions are opting out of this Obamacare. They can't be satisfied. And that's the reaction that I'm getting when I'm out there. They cannot be satisfied with the people that basically they're enslaved to work for as campaign workers. So then you get to Beacon Hill and you see folks like Patrick in that sales tax I talked about. And people like Finneran and DeMacy and now DeLeo.
Yeah.
DeLeo should have been indicted as criminal. No question.
Sure.
There's no question that he gave out jobs to people in the probation department to garner the votes he needed to become Speaker of the House. And who's going to do or say anything about it? It's not going to be the mainstream media in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It's going to be folks like myself. It's going to be folks like Jim Lyons, Lee Pohl, Jeff Deal, Sean O'Connell, Mark Lombardo, guy I like a lot. These the economy. It's great. I definitely support it. But if we didn't have Tufts like here in Medford or Harvard or some of these other colleges that people were coming to, UMass, we would, this state would be in very, very serious. We're at what? I think a $26 million debt or something like that. It's really high per person. And unless we change the rules and regulations up on Beacon Hill, it's going to continue to go up. And eventually, it's the how do I say it? The stuff is going to hit the fan.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's going to be a mass exodus. In fact, everybody calls Massachusetts Taxachusetts. I call it tax mass exodus. It's because everybody is. We've seen net job growth. Again, more candidates that I've had on the show. This other one I was talking to, he said that ever since Duval got in there, we have seen no net job growth. And not just job growth as in, okay, unemployment is lowering and people are finding jobs. No, there's been nothing new created. No businesses, nobody, no entrepreneurs or somebody that's invented the next better mousetrap has said to themselves, I want to go to Massachusetts and start my company there. That's what this candidate was talking about. It's never happened. And one of the things that I was talking last night with Donna Calorio. She used to be on the Worcester School Committee. I was filming at a Tea Party event last night for the Meat and Potato Show. And listening to Donna, one of the things that she had talked about is as Common Core gets underway here in Massachusetts, and we lower our standards and we dumb down our educational system, what we're going to end up with is we're going to end up with a potential adult workforce or young adult workforce that is just woefully incapable of any type of critical thinking, any type of decision making on the job, any type of skills. Even if you don't go to a vocation school, I mean, even in high school, okay, you get a part-time job, or maybe you go, you work for some after extracurricular school activity where you learn those skills. But as Common Core gets bigger and bigger and more entrenched in our system, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to have a bunch of dumb kids out there, and they're not even going to be able to know how to bag groceries. I mean, do you think that that's a possibility?
Oh, I think that's exactly what they're trying to do. I'm going to come right out and say it.
Go ahead.
These folks are socialists, and socialist countries thrive on having a dumbed-down electorate so that they can get away with their power and control aspirations that they're seeking. We would, really briefly, you were talking about no jobs being created. Oh, they're being created. Look at the Patrick administration.
Yeah.
Thousands of jobs in the government.
Yep.
The government sector is growing. The private sector is shrinking. Now, talking about Common Core, I am a former certified teacher
Yes.
in Massachusetts. I taught up on the North Shore at places like Danvers High School. And Common Core, what this is doing is, like you said, it's not teaching the skills to our students to be free thinkers. It's not giving them a full education, and that is by design. They're taking works of, say, Hawthorne or Mark Twain, and giving them only pieces of some of the greatest books and novels, not the full thing. Any references to America and our rich heritage and history are being taken out.
That's right.
They're rewriting history.
That's right.
They're dumbing down people, our students, and it's people like Bill Gates who are funding it with these standardized text creators. What they've done is they've created a perfect business model so that they can get richer. The more students go to take these mass cast tests and everything else, and the more they fail it, then the schools have to go back and buy more standardized tests, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
One of the things that Donna Calorio also talked about is Massachusetts currently has some of the highest standards and some of the highest passing grades. I think we're like number 1 or 2 in the entire country. In fact, some of the Common Core forums that I've been to, it was basically said that Massachusetts actually is an island unto itself. It's actually kind of an oddity that our standards are so high. And what Common Core is going to attempt to do is create what they call a national standards. Now, here's what's going to happen. Let's take a state like Arkansas or Mississippi or somewhere down there and they're like 47, 46. They're down there. But instead of those states being forced to raise their standards to meet that national middle ground standard, no, states like Massachusetts are going to be forced to dumb their situation down. They're going to be forced to toss out everything that they've worked so hard for. And again, it just brings me back to my original question that, I mean, we're going to be graduating really just ill-equipped students, and I really have a big fear for what the future is. But again, we're seeing pushback here, and I belong to the Common Core Forum, and I've done research into that, and I've talked about it on my show. Are you seeing pushback also? Again, from talking to people that you meet at the events, but again, you used to be a teacher yourself. What are some of the contacts that you probably still have? What are you hearing about the pushback against Common Core?
Well, unfortunately, from a lot of the administrators that are, how do I say it, that are part of the liberal left.
Go ahead and say it, please, Rob.
Superintendents, there's little pushback, but from the people, and parents, and even a lot of the teachers, they do not want a one-size-fits-all national federal standard for academics. And you're absolutely right. Massachusetts, it has been the leader. We were number one in academics for something like out of 10 years, for like 7 out of those 10 years. That whole race to the top that Obama did, what he was trying to do was model the Massachusetts standard on our excellent educational advantages. And we have a lot to lose in Massachusetts through making this is what they want to do. They want to nationalize and federalize everything. Education, industry, healthcare.
Yeah. Hello, can we spell communism? Does anybody out there know how? Oh wait, no, we're Common Core students now. We don't know how to spell communism anymore. But yeah, that's exactly it. And I completely appreciate your tacit honesty. I really appreciate that. Your candor is spot on. One of the things I do not do on my show is I play that middle ground, that sit on the fence thing. No, I am definitely a right-wing Tea Partier, and I completely support. So if you want to use words like lefty liberal, you go right ahead, Rob. And speaking about our patriotism and our Constitution, one of the questions I'm going to be asking at the symposium that's coming up on the 30th. And I'll just read the question right here, and I'm going to go back to your website. But let's talk about constitutional principles. Elected officials take that oath. Police, government workers, district attorneys, many others take a similar oath. Yet today, it seems perfunctory. It seems procedural. And it's all about pomp and ceremony. And I know I don't have to ask you this question, but I am anyway. Can you promise the citizens, when you become elected, that you will truly preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States? You call yourself, on your website, a Frederick Douglass Republican. So, yeah, what do you think about this getting away from the constitutional principles that our elected leaders are supposed to protect, defend, and uphold? I mean, what is going on with these people?
There's no nice way of saying it. These progressives have been trying to take us away from our constitutional free republic for a little over about 100 years now, and they've been little by little over the century. They've been quite successful, and it, Chris, is frightening.
It is.
Me. It's frightening to me. I will, with every ounce of my fiber, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. It is the greatest single document. It's not perfect. Nothing is, but it's definitely the most perfect when you look at the history of the world. America is the exception world rule that we've seen. Nowhere else in the world have people been able to do the things that they can do, and it's because of our Constitution and our freedom. And when I see folks like Obama, folks like this mayor of New York City,
De Blasio,
Brown out there in California, a lot of the people here Party of America award ceremony.
Whoa.
These folks do not believe in the Constitution anymore. It's through Common Core, they will never be teaching the fundamentals of a free constitutional republic. They want to, quite frankly, kill it and bring in a big statist government. It's what they've been trying to do for years, and it's frighteningly in our faces right now.
Right.
And we need more folks. I am a Frederick Douglass Republican. The guy who started that movement, Mr. K. Carl Smith,
Yep.
he came up a few months ago to the Roxbury Community College, gave an excellent lecture on what it means to be a Frederick Douglass conservative messenger. And the basic tenets are respect for life and the Constitution, and a belief in limited government and personal responsibility. And what could be more beautiful than that? Government we definitely have a need for government, there's no question about it. But government is not the master, it's the servant, and it has to be. That's the whole principle of the Constitution. What was it Obama called it? What did he say about it? A charter of negative liberties, because it doesn't say what government must do on behalf of the people. Well, Mr. President, guess what?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
It's not supposed to, right? It's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the harbinger of goodwill and everything else to the American people. In fact, I subscribe to the New American magazine that's put out by the John Birch Society, and just in the last issue that I got, great article. It's only about 1 page long, and I don't have it in front of me, but there was a book that's just been published about Grover Cleveland. And very few people know anything about Grover Cleveland, but according to this article, Grover Cleveland was one of those constitutional conservative presidents who happened to be also a Democrat. And one of the things that the way the book was described is, I mean, this guy vetoed practically every single bill that came across his desk, only because he kept looking at this core value of the Constitution. He kept looking at it saying that I can see nothing in the Constitution that allows this bill to be, or that this law should be enacted, and so I've got to veto this thing. And I ordered the book on Amazon. I can't wait for it to come in. I can't wait to read it, because I've been doing a lot of studying on the different presidents. And it's interesting to see how, when you talk about early presidents, 1700, from Washington forward, up until about Lincoln, there's a few that come shortly after him as well, where, you know, they're very constitutional minded. They're very national oriented and very patriotic. They do believe in the role of a limited government. Modern progressives would say, oh no, they're cold and heartless, that kind of thing. But I disagree. These guys were really strict constructionists. It was only until about the 21st century, and I would have to say that Wilson was the guy that ushered most of it in. And you and I are old enough to have been around enough times. We remember the 60s. We remember the radicalism that went on back then. This has been, you're right, this has been an inexorable march towards this progressive socialist society. And I had posited in one of my articles on my blog site that this is intentional. This isn't just some evolutionary thing that just naturally occurs in the nation. No, this is purposeful. These people are sitting down at tables, discussing this stuff. They're using every weapon they can to dumb down the students, to negate our history, to instill a sense of government entitlement, and we see it all the time in the people. My wife and I have worked retail, and we see this sense of people, you know, people come in and they just have this sense of entitlement that, oh, well, I deserve this, and I should have this, and why is it, you know, $19.99? Why isn't it $5.99? I should only be paying that. It's really bizarre. So this is intentional. So I guess what my question is since, do you see a sea change? I know you've talked about the people being angry and what's going on out there, and I see that too. Do you think we're at that tipping point now where this socialism is right in front of us? People are waking, and people are waking up, and that possibly 2014, 2016, we're going to see a pulling back from the edge of the cliff. Do you see that?
I have been seeing exactly that, Chris, and it's, if there's any one silver lining in this dark socialist cloud falling over America, people like Obama Reed, and all of these other radical leftists, their policies fail. They scramble and wonder why, but they continue on their course towards a bigger state. People are seeing that, and people are, thank goodness, thank God, waking up to it. And it's wonderful to be out there in my district, knocking on doors and talking about this with people, because it's when you articulate the point to them about what people like the woman I'm challenging, Pat Jalen, are like, and how she is openly socialist. They're shocked, and they're seeing their country waste away. They're seeing their freedoms go down. They're seeing things with the education being destroyed, and it's frightening. It's frustrating, but a lot of people are waking up, and I'm very hopeful that we'll have a strong conservative landslide on November 4th this year, and in 2 years we'll elect a Rick Perry or Ted Cruz or Sarah Palin through the White House and get this country back. And it's not going to be easy. They've been working on it for 100 years. We're not going to overnight get back to our constitutional free republic. We have to get people up there. These are the stories that are not being told to the American people. What Scott Walker is doing in Wisconsin should be mainstream media. These are the things they should be talking about. And it's being suppressed. It's being silenced. I'd like to see a conservative rising in the media. Thankful for shows like yours and other folks out there. The president of the Massachusetts Republican Assembly, Mr. Dave Kopaz, is bringing back his red pill politics, and I think that's wonderful. We need a lot more conservative messengers out there to get the word to people that, are out there. A lot of people are out there. They're not paying attention to politics because they're worried about losing their job. They're worried about education for their kids. They're worried about their health care. So when good folks like everybody I just mentioned, yourself and all these other great candidates that are running, who actually care and want people to remain free, prosperous, healthy, longevity, and belief in God, strong family values, when these folks get out there and we engage the electorate, there is no machine strong enough to stop that, because we have passion, we have focus, we have drive, and we now have the momentum because of that sea change that I really do believe is here. And I don't know where Pat Jalen figures in all this. All I know is that I got involved in politics I've always paid attention since I was a little kid. And I've got involved about 7 years ago, and it started out small, going to the RTC meetings. I ran for the Tea Party meetings. I ran for Republican State Committee and got there. I started going to what's the old adage, all politics is local. I can't emphasize enough to people out there that are listening. Get into town halls, get into your city halls, go to those meetings, listen to what these people are saying and doing. You will uncover a treasure trove of information. And unfortunately, in Massachusetts anyway, what I saw is that these folks, again, government is serving itself and not the people. And I couldn't just sit idly by. I'm a former soldier. I'm completely dedicated and driven by a sense of duty, and I couldn't just sit idly by. So I've been out there. I've been going to lectures and Tea Party meetings. I've been to Washington, D.C. and addressed some of the representatives at the march on 9/12. I ran for city council last year, and out of 13 candidates, I came in 10th. I didn't do too bad. I spent less than $100. I got 2,311 votes. I did pretty good. So I have a really good chance of taking this seat from Pat Jalen. I mean, I ain't gonna candy coat it. It's a very tough district. I've got Somerville in my district. This is Mayor Curtatone, who signed the executive order not to ask anybody their immigration status, which is against the law. It's a criminal. It's a criminal act.
Let's move on to that. Let's move on to that because we're coming up to the half-hour mark, 35 minutes or so. I know you're a busy guy, but yeah, let's talk quickly about that. Again, and you and I, obviously your name is Cappucci, and it sounds like it's Italian. Your parents or your grandparents were most likely immigrants. My parents were immigrants. I'm actually first-generation immigrant. My mother was born in England and came over here as a very young child, and so I'm first generation. So I remember the stories my mother told me, and I'm sure you remember the stories your parents and your grandparents told about coming here. But they came here, and the very first thing that they all wanted to do, the minute they stepped off the boat, was we're in America now, and we're going to be Americans, and we're gonna get our citizenship, and we're gonna learn to speak English, and we're gonna become Americans. With all these illegals that are coming in here right now and getting all these free health care and the free ride and the free welfare, I mean, there's no incentive for them to A, become Americans, or B, assimilate into society. This is why we have these enclaves that are strictly Hispanic, or enclaves that are strictly Islamic, and enclaves that are strictly African, and some of these other areas. There's none of that. There's none of that desire anymore to, we're in America now, we're going to become Americans, and that's just it. We're going to remember our heritage and celebrate our heritage, but we're in America first. I mean, you see it all the time, people flying their flags over American flags, and I know that's kind of a minor thing, it's really not that important, but it just kind of underscore what I'm saying here. There's no desire there anymore. So talk about the illegals, and maybe talk a little bit about your history too.
Well, I'm the fourth generation. All my grandparents and my great-grandfather, he came over here from Naples in 1875. But yes, you're exactly right. When they came over here, they wanted to learn English. They wanted to become American as opposed to just being in America. They wanted to use their hands and work and build a life for their families, excuse me, for their children and their grandchildren to have a better life than what they had in the quote-unquote old country. But look at what the narrative is today by the liberal left, the socialist, radicalized liberal left. America isn't the shining city on the hill. Reagan purported, improved. America is the problem in the world.
Then why are they coming here? If it was such a big problem, why are they coming here in droves? It's the conundrum. I always use the term the hypocrisy of liberalism, or the oxymoron of liberalism. It's really bizarre. Go on. I'm sorry, sir.
It's frustrating. It really is. This country has been, called the American experiment. Because can people govern themselves? And given the opportunity, given the chance to do things for themselves without stifling by government bureaucracies and red tape, yes, of course we can. Of course we can. When we are a well-educated, a well-informed, and treated fairly people. We do have a rich history and a heritage that is unique among the history of nations on the planet Earth. And it's just so infuriating to see what's happening in this country. Folks are like we want people to come to this nation. We want them to just take the legal route of coming here, like our forebears did. But when folks like Pat Gillen, the woman I'm challenging, she's the state legislator, the state senator, who sponsored the bills for in-state tuition for illegal aliens and driver's licenses for illegal aliens. Not only does that go against our core traditions in the United States, but let's look at what it's doing. It incentivizes otherwise good people from other nations to risk their lives traveling over the Rio Grande or traveling through the desert to come here. And it just puts them in harm's way. And when they do get here, their first act is to sneak in and break the law. What respect are they going to have for any other laws? It's a viable question. It's a fair question. And none. And that's the erosion of our nation that must be stopped. no-brainer, yes. Check that box, yes. Not just yes, but hell yes. Of course they should. Letting these people out early puts our police in harm's way. It's no justice to the victims that they committed their crimes against, and it puts other innocent people out there not even knowing, not even paying attention, at risk and potential of being harmed. Pat Jalen voted no on that. That is so irresponsible. You can go to Project Vote Smart, it's called, the website, and bring up Pat Jalen and look at her voting record. She has to go. She's a nice person personally, and people I speak to her in the district who know her, oh, I'm sure she's a wonderful person personally. But when it comes to a professional and her voting record, it's not what Massachusetts, it's not what this country needs. And we talk about the national things that are going on. There are things the state legislatures can do. Mark Revin talks about it on his radio program almost every night. There are things we can do. We citizen politicians that Reagan called himself, these folks that see change we spoke about before, these people getting up off their couches, everybody out there that's listening, please get involved. If you don't want to run for office, find a great candidate like the one some of the ones I mentioned before, Mark Aguilera, Allegro, James Earhart, Karen Anderson. Karen Anderson is beautiful. Get out there and help them. And if they're not satisfying to you, run for office. Because there are things we can do at city and state level. The states came together and formed the federal government, not the other way around. We have the 10th Amendment. There are things. I work in the medical device industry. The Obamacare, the medical device tax, is obliterating our industry. One of the first things I do when I am elected on November 4th is put forth the legislation. Some candidates are talking about, a full exemption of Obamacare. That might come, that might not. But there are things like a medical device tax that doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. You know that's killing jobs in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is the third largest producer of medical devices. That exemption has to happen for the state, and that legislation and other pieces like it will come when we retire 30-year incumbent Pat Jalen and some of these other folks. And people get involved, please, and help candidates like myself, because we're really in it to lessen the size and scope of government and expand the economy in the private sector and fight against what you said is happening on purpose, the purposeful destruction of our Constitution and our way of life.
Exactly.
I can't stand for it anymore. I'm not going to stand for it anymore.
Hey.
We have to do better.
Hey, so what's next for you? I know you're busy campaigning. What events are you going to? I know you had to drop out of the symposium. I understand that you've got a lot of, but this is why I asked you. It sounds like you've got a lot of events that you got to go to and a lot of campaigning that you're doing. So why don't you tell us what's next for you, and then we're gonna wrap this up in a few minutes.
Well, tomorrow I will be at a fundraiser with a couple other candidates down at our Republican Assembly National Committee Woman's Home in Westport. Wonderful, wonderful woman who I have so much respect for because she has just so much energy and so focused. Mary Lou Daxland. On Sunday morning, I'll be at, in my district, a place called Carol's Restaurant. It's at 21 Main Street, 10 a.m. to noon for a fundraiser and breakfast and a meet and greet. Looking forward, I have a bunch of other events lined up. As far already as October, I'll be at State Representative Jim Lyons' house on October 16th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the barn, meeting and greeting with the folks and getting the funds that we need. And unfortunately, we can, get out there to the people. We don't have the funds to deliver that message. It's happened, and it's not going to happen. And under the OCPF rules, I don't know if many people know this, but, individuals and political action committees are limited to giving $500. Businesses and corporations can't give $1. But unions can give up to $15,000. That's one of the biggest reasons We have one-party rule in Massachusetts, and something's really got to be done about that. I know they talk about, but the corporations can do things for you, like, the Koch brothers aren't coming in and doing a massive ad blitz for Robert Cappucci from Memphis. That's not going to happen.
That would be nice, though, wouldn't it? That would be a really nice gesture.
Yeah, we definitely need the help to get our message out there so that we can, those of us that do have the passion, that are citizen politicians that do have the passion to bring the reformative change that's really necessary. I mean, my campaign slogan, we have to do better. A few people on my team said, make that we must. Well, that's like saying, well, I must have a Coke really, with my, you don't really have to have a Coke fries, so you hamburger and French fries. What's going on in this country? We have to change it. There's no question. There's no alternative. We have to do better. Or we're going to fail. Or our free republic is going to be gone. If our economy crashes under an $18 trillion national debt, all services are going to stop. Trucks aren't going to be bringing for, like, look at Market Basket. Nothing on the shelves there.
Yeah.
Imagine right across the panorama of every business and every industry.
Yeah.
And then, what's going to happen then? Look at the Great Depression in times 1,000.
Exactly.
It's just frightening to me. But we can change this and reform America for the better. It's not really all doom and gloom, because there are people like you on your radio show, and God bless you. There are people like myself on it. There are, like I mentioned, Dave Kopaz and Mary Lou Baxlin. We care, we're focused, we're principled, we're rational, we're portrayed as angry right-wing people. We're not.
We love our country. We love our country, and we're very passionate about it.
Exactly. It's from a standpoint of love. And so people can get involved or run for office, come to some of those events I mentioned, or look up your favorite candidates and go to their events and throw 10, 25, 50, 100 bucks if you can. Please visit my website. It's www.votecappucci. That's CAPPUCCI.com. Just like cappuccino without the no at the end. You can get involved. Volunteers, there's so many candidates out there. Volunteers are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a pretty good team. A lot of good people are helping me, but we always need more.
All right, Rob. Thank you so much. What an absolutely fantastic interview. Thank you so much for being very candid about everything. And I'm going to miss you at the symposium. God, we would love to have your input. We would love to have it there. But I understand. You've got a lot of work to do, and I would rather concentrate on your election. Ladies and gentlemen, he's running for state senate as a Republican, a Frederick Douglass Republican, for the 2nd Middlesex District, Massachusetts. Rob, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chris.
Sir.
God bless you.
God bless you. Soon. Bye. Well, there you go. Well, there you go. As I said, I love this job. I absolutely do.